Today's story is a stark reminder as to why you should always read the fine print. On the morning of August 7th, 1981, a 34-year-old wildlife photographer named Carl McCunn stood on the edge of a lake in the Alaskan wilderness and chucked a box of ammunition into the water. Carl was on the last day of a 5-month-long solo camping trip in a very remote area of northern Alaska. A plane had dropped him off here in early spring, and he had set up his tent by this lake. No people around for at least 100 miles. Carl looked up into the sky and listened carefully for the low roar of the plane that was supposed to pick him up today. The type of plane that was going to be picking him up today, it was his buddy Rory's plane. It was really small. He didn't need all of his ammo, so that's why he was chucking his ammo into the lake. And he decided that, you know what, I'll hold on to at least one box of ammunition. It was about mid-afternoon. Still, no sign of the plane. The sun was beginning to set. This far north, the sun stayed out for nearly 20 hours a day in the summer. That meant it had to be near midnight. Carl knew his friend had officially missed the date. And finally, he had to reset up his tent, but then another day came and went, and then another, and still no plane. Carl remembered something that made him feel sick to his stomach. On the night 6 months earlier, when he and Rory had discussed pickup plans, Carl remembered that night had been filled with drinking. Rory had also said that he would have to check his schedule first, and Carl, in his excitement about going on this trip, had just forgotten to follow up with Rory and make absolutely sure he could pick him up. Rory wasn't coming, and all of this meant now Carl was going to face a brutal Alaskan winter all by himself. But sure enough, he looked up into the sky. He saw a plane flying directly towards his camp. Carl ran in his tent and grabbed the most brightly colored thing he could find, his sleeping bag, which was bright orange, and began waving it back and forth to get the pilot's attention. Carl saw the plane belonged to the Alaska State Troopers. Carl could actually see the pilot looking back at him. He threw his fist up in the air in excitement. The plane just kept on flying away from Carl's campsite until it disappeared over the horizon. Lying inside his tent that night, Carl couldn't sleep. He didn't understand, why didn't they stop? Carl has been stranded for weeks. He has read all of his books. He was looking for literally anything else to read. And suddenly he found something, his hunting license. Then he saw something that made his heart practically stop. He suddenly understood why that pilot had left him. By October, Carl was getting really skinny. By November, Carl was genuinely starving. On November 26th, Thanksgiving Day, Carl laid inside of his tent and made a diary entry. He wrote, "They say it doesn't hurt." Then he reached for his and his last box of ammo. A single shot rang out across the lake. A couple months later, Alaska State Troopers would find Carl. Carl was deceased. What Carl had only realized later was that fist pump had sealed his fate because, like it said on Carl's hunting license, a single arm raised in the air is the universally recognized body sign for all okay, do not wait. If Carl had only read that hunting license a little bit sooner, he would have known to have raised 2 hands in the air for the universal sign that means pick me up.